Okay.
It's time for Zeb at the Ranch with your host Zeb Bell and newsworthy and noteworthy John Ellis. This podcast will always be brutally honest with integrity and honesty and without low-class, no-class cursing that's in vogue today with illiterate politicians. Now, Zeb at the Ranch.
Good afternoon on a Monday. No, can we start that over and say good afternoon, and welcome to Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday. You know what's really discombobulating is looking across the table right now to John Ellis. What are you wearing on your head and in your mouth?
Well, it's time for a celebration, Zeb. I'm really excited.
John Ellis, what is the celebration?
Well, I don't know if you've heard or not, but Nancy Pelosi is retiring from Congress.
Yeah, there you go. There you finally about blew his brains out. Limited as it is, please, the celebratory mood that you're in for Nancy Pelosi leaving is outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, let me ask you something. Years ago, I think I could be wrong on my dates exactly, maybe it was more than 20 years, her and her husband were only worth $203 million.
Yep.
Okay, with the wine, vineyards, etc.
Yep.
Now, after these years in Congress, she's leaving at, I believe, $240 million. We're in the wrong line of work.
Well, and here's the thing. I've heard her urban legend. I don't know if it's true or not. It's probably not true, but I think she made a deal with the devil, and her hand at the end of this term no longer moves. And that's a spicy meatball hand.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, she'll no longer be able to talk any longer.
There you go. Well, I'm glad to see her going. As a matter of fact, I wish she'd drive a great big yellow school bus up on the steps of the Capitol and take most of the Democratic Party with her.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
I tell you what, the only one I'm finding any common sense with, John Fetterman.
And
can you believe that a year ago I criticized this guy?
Well, he's got plenty of bad ideas, that's for sure, but he's more of a traditional Democrat, and I just read this morning that he was lamenting that MSNBC won't interview him anymore.
Yeah. Well, he's been ostracized by quite a few people now. They don't want anything to do with him because he had common sense.
Yep.
He didn't want the government shut down.
Yep.
He didn't want the employees like the air traffic controllers, our military, etc., not to be paid.
Yeah.
That's all common sense.
Oh, I know it. Well, he's more closer to maybe like a
moderate,
a John Kennedy Democrat.
Absolutely,
you know,
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. May I, now that you've taken that hat off and I can look across the desk without giggling, can I go ahead and give you the quote of the day?
Absolutely.
You're going to love this one because it's very appropriate to what's going on right now, especially after the idiotic election of Mondami in New York for mayor. This is a quote from Karl Marx, one of the worst human beings, I think, ever in civilization.
Yes.
And it kind of hits home as to what's going on today. His object in life was to dethrone God and destroy capitalism.
Yep. I could give you a litany of Karl Marx's quotes because you talk to people, young people today, and say, well, you sound like a Marxist, and they're offended by that. But if you read the writings of Karl Marx, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their fair share, and you can work as hard as you can, but nobody gets anything special. Everything's Eve and Steven, you know?
What happened to capitalism? What happened to the respect for capitalism? What happened to the knowledge of capitalism and what it's done for this great country for the last almost 250 years? What happened?
Well, personally, I don't know if we've ever actually practiced free market capitalism in the United States. We've come close a few times, but we have so much government involvement, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, that regulate and reward certain industries and penalize other industries. Pure free market capitalism would basically be nobody gets any extra money for anything. Farmers, windmill people, green energy, nobody. And it would just make it a fair thing where the market drives prices, production, that type of thing, instead of government involvement. But more and more, you've got people like the sheep's clothing Mondami coming in, making all these promises about giving things away for free, which he doesn't even have the power to do.
When you look at him, And I know I'm being subjected to a lot of criticism out there, but when you look at Mamdani and when he looks at the TV cameras and why is my picture frame not working on the computer? I'm sitting here moving and nothing's happening.
Oh, well, we just got a static picture of you. You keep talking. I'll see if we can get that one
static
fixed.
picture. That's
Yeah.
what my wife said the other day. I've got a static picture of you. But anyway, people, they seem to really respect and crave his personality, his politics, and it's starting to spread in so many other areas. I'm scared, John. I really am as to what's going to happen.
Yeah, I am too, Zeb. He's not what's going to be best for this country, that's for sure. And there's what worries me though is that now you've got people that are going to be sucking up to him, like the CEO of what was it, Bank of America, or J.P. Morgan or something, and that scares me. These are people that should just be saying he's wrong. We're going to suffer for probably 8 years, but we need to get stuff to take care of him, get him out of the picture.
You are, and I respect you for it, a very, may I say, devout libertarian.
Yes.
And you have provided me with reading material, trying to transform my conservative mind somewhat.
Well, I've found that you had a fairly open mind, like most people don't think you do.
A lot of people say I have an open mind. You can look in one ear and see out the other. But no, I'm serious. I really enjoy your opinion, and you had one this morning that you really wanted to emphasize.
Yep. Today's Libertarian Minute takes a look at conscription, also known as the draft. There's a fine distinction there, but what I understand is the 13th Amendment makes it clear that we have the right not to be subjected to slavery or involuntary servitude, and conscription violates that right. In 1814, Daniel Webster asked Congress, where is it written in the Constitution, in what article or section is it contained that you may take children from their parents and parents from their children and compel them to fight the battles of any war in which the folly or the wickedness of the government may engage in? And then even Ronald Reagan, before he was elected, agreed and said conscription rests on the assumption that your kids belong to the state. If we buy that assumption, then it is for the state, not the parents, community, religious institutions, or teachers to decide who shall have what values and who shall do what work, when, where, and how in our society. Now, one thing I did notice about war is when a war is just, you'll have no shortage of volunteers. You only have to look at World War II, and I've talked to a number of people.
Let me interrupt you right there. Do you believe that even today?
I do believe that today, and I'll tell you why. But in World War II, people were lying about their age to join up because that was a valid war. But
some went in as young as early 16 or even younger.
Right. Yeah, you hear about these in their funerals, But today, for example, the war in Iraq, which was still debatable by people, there's a lot of people that didn't think it was a valid war. You had people signing up, getting after it. And even at that time, I was more of a conservative at that time. I was like, man, if I wasn't as old as I was and had kids, I'd be off fighting.
Right.
But think about Ukraine. If the president already all said, well, we got to draft people and send them over to Ukraine, and that could happen.
From your viewpoint on not wanting to have a draft system for the military.
Yep.
And I want to get into other things here, but I want to go over this point. What do you want realistically, in your opinion, or pie in the sky? How would you like to change it?
Pie in the sky, I would like to go back to the Constitution, which isn't even quite libertarian on this point. The Constitution provides for a Navy. So the idea is to protect our borders from invasion, and it only allows for funding of an army for 2 years. The founding fathers were terrified of a standing army, and that's what we have now.
But would you concede the fact that those days of old are old, and now we have to look at a nuclear threat more than anything else, and a increased naval threat, if you will, is not feasible?
Well, perhaps that's the case, but even if it is, let's do it the right way. Let's pass an amendment. Let's do it the right way and do it legislatively, and just instead of saying, well, the Supreme Court says that this 13th Amendment doesn't apply to the draft. Well, they said the same thing about abortion, so they can be wrong about that. And I certainly believe where it talks about no involuntary servitude, you can't force people to do stuff for the government.
Okay, then let me throw this point at you. Why then is the Israeli government so successful in creating a military that is just really founded upon pride and love of country, and all of their young men and women to a certain extent
Yeah.
are required to serve for the Israeli military.
Yeah, I would say personally, I don't think that should be a requirement for them, but you've got to understand the situation that they're in. They are surrounded actively by enemies trying to destroy
that's the
them.
truth.
If I lived in Israel, if I was an Israeli, I would absolutely join the military to just protect the country.
So where we are today, and we've had all these wars and conflagrations, and we've had the draft for
Yep.
World War II, et cetera, and
Right.
before. Are we at a point where never go back, never utilize again the draft, always depend upon a volunteered, paid military? What are your thoughts?
That's what I would like to see, because I don't believe the state should have control of an individual's time, which is their most valuable asset, is their time. So if you force someone into the military for, say, even 2 years, you've just stolen 2 years of their life. So make it something that they want to go do, and stay out of these weird things that nobody wants to get involved with. And when it comes time to protect our country, you'll have people lining up to do it.
Absolutely. Any thoughts more that you want to put forth? I mean, you have the floor.
Well, one other thing is there's always been the talk about having people do some type of national service or requirement. And this goes along with the draft as well. Anytime you force people under the control of the government, whatever administration is in gets to do the brainwashing.
That's true. That's true.
And it wouldn't be terrible, I suppose, if the conservatives were doing it, but I sure as heck don't want the liberals to be doing it.
I'm not ever going to be accused of being wishy-washy, but you brought up some excellent points of interest about not having the draft or the conscription. I just maintain that I think we've got to develop somewhat of a pride in country attitude that we don't have now.
Yep, and that's a very valid point of view, and I understand the position of the people that are in favor of the draft. It's not a wacky idea. It's just one that I don't believe in. So,
All right.
Yeah.
See?
Yep.
We didn't end up in a fist fight or anything else. So, good. Hey, by the way, can we take some time and talk about some of the golden moments of television from days gone by, the old TV Westerns?
Oh, yeah.
You and I, to be transparent, we talked a little bit before we went on the air this afternoon about this. And I think I surprised you somewhat when I said the TV series Bonanza with Lorne Greene and Michael Landon, Pernell Roberts, Dan Blocker, etc.
Yeah.
It ran from September 1959. I didn't know it had gone this long. I forgot. September of 1959 all the way to January of 1973. And I made the statement that I said I thought it was one of the worst TV Westerns because of a lack of realism.
So
your comments.
Well, I was a small child, and I absolutely loved
No,
it.
there you go. You had to throw age into this again. Yes, I have quite a few years on you. Yes, I remember sitting on Sunday nights at a TV tray that my mother put cheeseburgers on, and we watched Bonanza. So don't throw that at me all the time.
A lot of people get after the realism of stuff, and I get that, especially, like, for example, The Lord of the Rings. People read the books, and they watch the movie, and they go, it varies too much. So I understand the realism thing, and I do appreciate that, but come on, I'm like 5 or 6 years old watching the show. It's wonderful.
Okay, well, I'll go along with that point of view, but I'll use the tack that they use, the saddles and everything else.
Sure.
There were not hand-tooled saddles, very fancy saddles used in the Old West in the 1870s.
You have got to be wrong about this, because I saw it on Bonanza.
Oh, well, okay. No, and I know the company that built the saddles for the Bonanza crew. It was the Bonna Allen Saddle Company.
Huh.
And they had a contract to build all these saddles. And another thing that was not real, as far as I'm concerned, they wore the same clothes every episode from 1959 to 1973.
See, and I thought that was just because they didn't have a washing machine.
What was his name? What was the Chinese man?
Hop Sing.
Hop Sing.
Yeah,
Hop
Hop Sing.
Sing. Yep, Hop Sing.
Yep.
But anyway, I just never found Bonanza that intriguing. I thought it was basically phony.
I'm easily entertained.
Okay. That's my review of the Old West and the show called Bonanza. And I just was, I think next week I'll pick out one that I really enjoyed.
All right. That sounds good. Yeah.
Have a question for you.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I've got quite a few questions for you.
All right.
And we don't have a guest coming on at this segment until the bottom of the hour. But I talked to John here a couple of days ago on the telephone, and we were talking about the fact, what would you do if?
Right. Yep.
And we came up with some different scenarios.
Yep.
And for those listeners out there in the audience, I want you to kind of not only play along, but think along as to what you would do. What would you do if you need to get your gravely ill family member to the hospital immediately, and you're the driver, and there's no ambulance service available, etc., and the road on the way to the hospital is blocked by protesters?
Oh,
we have seen this happen way too many times in
Yes.
this country as of late.
Yep.
What would you do if that happened to you?
I would crack my window and tell them, you must move. I am not stopping.
Amen.
And then I would just roll forward with my horn on. And I'm sorry if I hurt or killed somebody. My wife is more important. You're violating my right of freedom of movement. You're violating her right to life. I'm going over or through you, whatever you want. I don't care. Move or get run over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Our viewpoints on politics, we always say they're so different, but really they're not. I absolutely have thought of this with Deanne's health, my health, and I related to you a circumstance that happened when my little boy got hurt when he was a little boy years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just going to give them a warning that I am going through, and just like you said a moment ago,
Yep.
I am going through.
Yep. You're not going to stop me there. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're both in agreement on that one.
Pretty much. Yep.
There may be arrests. There may be charges filed against me, but that loved one of mine means more
Yep.
than a protest for perhaps climate change or whatever.
Yep. If I get my wife to the hospital and it saves her life and I go to prison, I'm okay with that. A life
Yeah.
sentence doesn't mean that much to me at my age.
Yeah, well, there you go again. Age always has to come up. What would you do? And here's one that I know that I think you and I are going to agree on. I have not asked you or queried you for your answer. What would you do if your daughter, and you have a daughter,
I have two and
Two.
4 granddaughters.
okay, and I have a daughter.
Yeah.
What would you do if your daughter came home from school totally shaken because a perverted male has been allowed to be in her locker room and bathroom?
Well, 2 things. One, first, if anything ever happens to that individual, you're probably going to want to interrogate me, just out of a matter of caution. But I would certainly be going to the school and asking them what's going on and demanding change. And if they weren't going to do any change, I would be jumping up and down in a canoe. I would be contacting paper reporters, congressmen, everybody to get some action done on that, because that is completely unacceptable. That's what, if that would have happened 40 years ago,
Oh, my goodness.
well, it wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened.
It wouldn't have happened because the teacher would have cleaned that person's clock.
Well, that, and so would the students.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right.
And maybe, John, that's an avenue of conversation right there.
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be people out in the audience that are going, oh, he's an advocate of violence. But in this case, where you're mentally destroying the concept of right and wrong and morality by this pervert being there,
Yeah.
I would enhance or encourage the girls to take this action upon themselves and literally bounce that pervert out in the hallway.
Yeah. Yeah. In the heat of the moment, I'm sure I would be doing some illegal things. If I had time to think about it, I'm sure I would just take legislative, public exposure type of things, so that I wasn't doing anything illegal. But no matter what, I would protect my daughters.
But it is today that, I think you'll agree, the time consumption of trying to follow the proper channels, they're going to do all they can to try to destroy you from pursuing a legal basis against that pervert.
Well, and these days, I'm not even convinced I would win.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I could make the battle and lose the battle, but I'm not losing my daughter.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
And there is right and wrong and morality, and
Yep.
we are getting further and further away from that in this country every day.
Honestly, I don't know why they have sex education in the schools.
Oh, my goodness.
Call me a Luddite, whatever you want to call me. I don't care. That's the business of the family and the parents. And my dad never gave me the talk. I'm sure he thought, well, they're handling that in school, so I don't need to. But I think it's the parents' so many things are the parents' responsibilities that's been freely given by us lazy parents to the government, to the schools, to everybody else. If there's a problem, let the government fix it. And I disagree with that 100%.
So do I.
Yeah.
So do I. Okay, next question.
Oh boy.
What would you do if, and this one has happened many, many times, too many times across the United States in the last 10 years. What would you do if you and your family came home after a 3-week vacation to find strangers living in your home? The locks have been changed, and they threaten you to leave them alone and get away from the house.
Well, for one thing, I've never had a 3-week vacation, but if I did, and that was the case, that would be a much easier thing for me to just handle. The first thing I would do is call my insurance company, because you want to turn the dogs of war loose. Talk to your insurance company, because they're going to be like, "This is not right. We got to take care of this," and of course, inform the local authorities. And nowadays, I try to get a hold of that guy that's helping people with this problem. He had the same thing happen to him, and he's worked out a way to get him out of the house.
Well, here's my attitude on this, and I know I'm the old cowboy, the crusty cowboy attitude. But we've had this situation almost happen to us. I don't mean with strangers in the house, but when you think about it, we, for 13 years, went to Arizona for the month of February.
Right.
The entire month.
Yep.
And one of the years when we came back home, it was on the news. You saw the story and everything, where these people, these house squatters, had broken in to various homes on the East Coast, and they weren't going to leave.
Yeah.
Some of which stayed there for months at a time because the law didn't have any power to get them out of there.
Yep.
My first thought is break the windows. Break the windows, smash the windows, whatever you have to do, smash the windows.
Yeah.
If it's in the wintertime, like when it was when we were in Arizona coming back to a cold climb like southern Idaho, break the windows. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Then I would get all my friends and neighbors to stand guard around that house, and the minute they come out, we're going in.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a little bit excessive, but I understand it. And
I'd rather pay for the windows than I would the destruction of my home.
well, if they're being forced out at some point, they're going to do all the destruction they possibly can.
That's right.
So
you're really not that far away from what I think.
no, not really, not at all. That's right to property.
Yeah.
And that's my property. I paid for it, or I'm in paying for it, or whatever. You have no right to it. And so I would hope that in our state, we have laws that deal with that properly. I don't understand these other places where they say, nope, sorry, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You're just out,
Yeah, it's really disconcerting to see a police officer standing on the other side of the street, and in our case, the other side of the highway, and just shrugging his shoulders and saying, oh, gee, I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah, that's not cool, man. Yep, not at all. Yep. So anyway, that's the answer to that question, I think, and hopefully it'd work out.
Okay, I hope I hit that right, because I think I cut it off, and so maybe I better have him call back.
Yeah.
I'll hit the off button if he can call back. Pastor, if you can. Okay, another question. What would you do if you go to your church service on Sunday and so-called, I'm going to do it right this time. There we go. He's there.
All right.
So-called activists and authorities tell you that you can't worship because of some dictate against worship gatherings.
Oh, yeah.
What would you do?
Well, we had that happen during COVID.
Northern Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sticky question, because, if you don't meet, you're not hurting anybody, but you can't stand for that. You've got to do something, and I don't know exactly what I would do. I'm just thankful we live in an area where
I do. I honestly, I've thought about this, and I hate to interrupt you on this, but I'm so livid about this.
Yeah.
Deanna and I have talked about it. I would just start singing either Onward Christian Show Soldier or Rock of Ages, whatever. Nobody, and I mean this, of human form is going to stop me from worshiping.
Yeah, I'm only trying to get into the mindset of where we were then, where the government had us so terrified. And I work with a brilliant dance instructor, and she said, when the government makes people afraid, they can do anything that they want. She's from England, and she said she's seen it. And so that's what happened during COVID. We were thinking if we didn't wear masks and we got next to somebody, we were going to die.
Yeah.
So they really blew the thing up. But yeah, you got to do something about that, whether it's talk to the leadership of the church and say, we got to stand together. And if they're not going to stand together, I'd have to stand apart from them.
What was the lunacy of saying, and it happened here in our state, you and I talked about this a long time ago.
Yeah.
I wrote blogs about it. In this state, they left liquor stores open, they left strip joints open, but you couldn't go to church?
Yeah, that's where you would find the standing upness for me. I wouldn't stand for it if that's the case,
Now, you've got a question.
Oh, yeah. This is a great one. And we thought about this. If you and your wife were sitting at McDonald's and somebody came in and started shooting up the place, what would you do?
Okay, now I gave you the answer first and foremost. And I'm not trying to sound like John Wayne or, Mr. Macho. First thing I would do if I was with my lovely wife was just literally try to throw her under a table for protection with me on top.
Sure.
Trying to protect her. But you had a different take and one that I respect.
Well, it depends on your ability. If I'm having a bad day,
on crutches, I doubt if I could pursue what you're going to say.
My wife and I have talked about this, and if it ever happens, there's not going to be any discussion or thought. I'm heading for the shooter, and she's following behind me. I'll take the bullet. She can take down the shooter, and I pity the fool that tangles with my wife.
No,
they're going to be hurting.
Why am I sweating all of a sudden?
She can take care of herself. So
no, but the attitude, we all have to be prepared more so today than ever before. And I was talking to another good friend of mine here about 3-4 weeks ago, and we were talking about different scenarios, kind of like these questions. What would you do if? And I don't think it's out of the rhyme and reason. What would you do if something happened at a grocery store?
Yeah.
What would you do if something happened at your church? We have to be prepared.
Oh, absolutely. Nowadays, you certainly do. And the questions that you ask are ones that we would never have even considered 40 years ago. But now, they're a real thing. Squatters, that never would have happened back then, but it happens all the time now.
Another question I had, and we didn't talk about this at all, is there seems to be so much protection for the criminal and the criminal action. And I know of circumstances around the United States where people have driven in rural farms and ranches at night, loaded up livestock, and just drove off.
Yep.
And people have been threatened. Oh, you can't go out with a firearm. Oh, no, you can't threaten them with a gun. You can't let off a round out of the chamber or whatever. Baloney. Yeah. I've got so much money invested in my livestock. I'm not about to let somebody drive in and steal it.
Yep. I think in our state, isn't there a right to, what is it called? You stand your ground.
Stand your ground, yeah.
Even with your property, I think. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but in a lot of states, they just tell you to bend over and take it.
Yeah.
Would
you, before we go to our next segment, tell everybody about how they can tune in to the program or get the newsletter or whatever?
Yeah, you betcha. To get that newsletter, let's start there. Just go to Zeb's website, www.zebbell.com, ZEBBELL.com, and right on the home page, on the left-hand side, down about halfway, you're going to see a little square where you can click on to sign up for cow pies and coffee cups. And it's always an interesting rant or missive.
I don't know if I like that or not.
From Zeb, I thoroughly enjoy those. So sign up for those; they don't cost you anything. And then also on the same page, right there on the home page, you can be prepared to watch the broadcast. Just tune in every Wednesday at 1:00, and if we make any changes, we'll let you know in advance if you're part of the blog.
And things are really going and growing for this podcast.
Yeah, I feel like they are, and it's pretty fun, Zeb. I'm not a guy that likes to be on camera or talk like this.
Oh, John, that's not true. Your next door neighbor said he just relishes the fact of coming over here and hogging camera time.
Okay, I'm busted. But I do enjoy having these discussions with you, and I think you're a great person to just sit down and talk to.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, for the years that you used to listen to me on the radio, and for those of you all across the world that are listening, I am not techno involved, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say good afternoon to our dear, dear friend back in Tennessee, Pastor Alex Lissau, with the segment called Why Not God? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Zeb and John, and may I begin by apologizing. I know that there's a frustration with the technology of me not being able to be on screen, and I apologize for that. And I can make all kinds of excuses, but I'm not going to. I'm just old and pretty much not interested in being a techno nerd, but I'm going to get my education from John, so I just wanted to let you know that I'm preparing myself to be on screen and not scare everybody out of the country.
Well, you don't have to apologize because I think both of us, you and I, there's only about a year or so difference in our ages. And many times, John leaves the studio after this podcast, and you can hear him out on my back porch on the sun deck as he gets ready to leave going, ay, 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 ay,
ay. Well, I was really, really looking forward to it. I thought we were going to get this thing together, and for some reason, I'm incompetent enough that I can't get it working right. And we'll get this fixed next week. I'm sure John has promised to lead me through it. But I wanted you to know that I not only have my Marine Corps shirt on.
Okay.
Semper Fi.
Mm-hmm.
That celebrates the Marine Corps birthday on November 10th, which was Monday.
Yep.
250 years of the United States Marines.
Yep.
The second thing I had is my Marine Corps coffee cup. I was going to be drinking coffee and showing it off while I was on the screen. And on my right wrist, I have a band that was given me by some people about honoring our veterans, which was yesterday.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that everybody recognizes that I think that that's the most important thing for us to remember is all of those people who sacrificed so much for the benefit of this country, because I think we've lost a little bit of that kind of thinking.
Well, I would disagree with your verbiage. I don't think we've lost a little bit. I'm afraid that we've lost way too much.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and I agree with that. I'm mostly speaking about us, those of us who are patriots. But yeah, I think and the reason I say that is because I believe that you've got to be a fighter, and I'm not talking about violence in the respect of that kind of a fighting. I think you've got to be a fighter. You've got to stand up for what is right and true and proper and good. And so much of what we've gone through in this country for 250 years, so many things that we have done and given and sacrificed and lives that were given and everything else. I don't think we stand up and fight enough.
Mm-hmm.
We don't speak out. We don't do what we need to do. We don't say, well, you guys were just talking about churches being shut down during the pandemic.
Right.
And in one of the blessings that I had as in my last call, my last service before I retired, I had a leader, Tim Fiscus, who was our church head elder, and myself, and our little group of people that were the leaders. And we all said together after the governor shut down and said non-essential to churches, et cetera, we were shut down. In fact, we missed Holy Week, we missed Easter. And after that, when we came back on board, we all agreed that that would never happen again. There would never be a government that was going to shut down the church of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ ever again. And I'm honored that, and I'm honored to be around people who believe that, because as long as we are allowing the world to tell us what we're going to do in the church, we will never be able to tell the world what it needs to do.
Well, you and I had this conversation many times on the radio program. And you and I both agreed that if I were sitting as a congregate member out there listening to your sermon, and the doors opened up all of a sudden and the so-called authorities came in and issued an order to vacate, you and I both said, I'm not leaving, and you're going to keep on preaching. Would you elaborate on that a little bit?
I agree 100%. And that's exactly, there's a lot of things you can do in this world to offend people. There's a lot of things you can do to offend organizations. But my God, do not offend God. And I will not ever allow anybody to put me in a position where I have to offend my God to make somebody else happy.
That puts it in perspective right there, brother.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And tying this all together, with the government shutdown of 40 plus days. And I have said to many people, and I'm going to say it again on this podcast, the shutdown was nothing more than a matter of control. It was nothing more than a matter of jealousy against the current administration. It was nothing more than a show of evil trying to take control and power in this country. And it was a complete path to Marxism and socialism in the United States. If you disagree, tell me you don't agree with me.
I agree with you 100%. And I believe that it is a tremendous failure on the part of the American people to not be screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs to say, who do you people serve?
That's right.
Not yourselves, but us. And this is what I can't understand. If anybody thinks shutting down the government benefits the people of this country versus the people who are in politics, they're out of their minds. Yeah. If there is a single person that doesn't blame the Democrats for not being willing to solve the problem with the Republicans, and if there's a single person in our country today that will not stand up to the Republicans who didn't stand up and fight hard enough, they need to be put in a nut house somewhere, because quite frankly, the situation that we're dealing with today is we've got people that are hungry. We've got children that need educations. We have people that are looking for protection and safety. We're looking at people who are standing on the front lines of our nation with all of the potential of the enemies that could be against us. We have all these problems and all these situations. We're going to deny them an income. I can understand us trying to be efficient, but I cannot understand how we can do something like we've done in these last 41 days.
John's got a question, but I want to finish this particular thought with this. And let me ask you this. We've heard this so many times with different talk shows, and I use that term loosely when I refer to the women on The View. They're not really the brightest bulbs in the fixture. When people make the assertion and the statement that this shutdown was all Trump's fault, let me reiterate, and for those of you that don't follow politics, the CR was written by the Biden administration and was not changed by the Republicans, and all the Democrats had to do was basically sign on to a democratically written CR, continued resolution. The government would not have been shut down. So where do you get the facts out of your simple mind that it was the GOP and the Trump administration?
It's TDS. It's Trump deranged. It's fight him at any point. This battle is not over. This is going to be continual. This is why I suggest that the Senate needs to get rid of the stupid filibuster rule.
Yeah, I agree with that. Pastor, go ahead and relate to that if you would.
Well, again, it's who takes responsibility for their functional activities? Who takes responsibility for what they were elected to do? When these people move into Washington, D.C. from their hometowns, et cetera, because they've been elected to a position of responsibility, what is their first thought in their mind? Is it about themselves, or is it about the people whom they're supposed to serve?
Oh, yeah.
And I think we've lost our way with regard to the whole concept of service and carrying out the responsibilities that we've taken the oath to carry out. And that's the failure I see in our government today.
Absolutely.
We've gone far off the rails from where we've been.
Absolutely.
Well, Pastor, your comment right there leads me back a little bit when we're talking about Veterans Day. You fought, or people your age or older fought, and Zeb's shaking his head. I respect your age. Let me just say that up front. Fought against communism. And now we've elected a communist mayor of New York City. So that's how far we've gone. We've lost God.
That's where we've lost. Yeah, we've lost our minds.
Absolutely.
We really have. To even consider electing a person who belongs to an organization that is directly in contradiction to the Constitution of the United States of America and its founding fathers and its religious standards and everything else. I mean, that's exactly what's happened with Mondami. And as far as I'm concerned, the people in New York have got to take a good look at themselves and say, who are we anyway?
Well,
are we American?
In accordance with what you and John both said, look at the background picture, if you will, of when the acceptance speech was given by Mamdani. Here you have all the people related to Islam in the front row. And you had all the Gen Zers absolutely standing up and praising socialism/communism and praising Islam. I'm really afraid, and Frosty Woldridge addressed this a week ago, that with the influx of the radical Islamic thought in this country, we're looking at a possible, underline that word, but it might be right around the corner, civil war to save our culture.
Yeah. And look at the quote that Zeb started the program with. The whole object of Marxism is to dethrone God.
That's right.
And destroy capitalism.
That's right.
How can you back somebody that is obviously a Marxist? I don't care what he says. He's a Marxist. So he's fundamentally trying to dethrone God and destroy capitalism.
Absolutely. Pastor?
Well, and we've let so many people into our country who come here without the same character traits that are built up this nation. We have people that come to this country that don't have the same cultural backgrounds, that don't have, and I'm not suggesting that these people don't have the right to be here. What I am suggesting is when they come here, they should embrace the American way of life.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you don't have to become a Christian, but you certainly can honor and respect the foundations of this country that is based upon the foundations of Christianity. You don't have to become a person that runs around trying to be somebody that you're not because of your cultural background or your history or whatever. But at least you ought to be accepting of other people's ways of living, et cetera, et cetera. The problem we have in our society is we don't have a unity of spirit or mind. We're not Americans first and then everything else. We are everything else first and then Americans last, if we're that at all.
Well, yeah.
And it's a sad point.
And would you agree? Would you agree with this? That the melting pot,
right? I was just going to say that. Yep.
The melting pot statement that has been used for well over 100 years in this country for immigrants coming into the United States, that is gone. There is no more melting pot. There is no more coming in and wanting to be an American of our culture, etc. That is dead.
E pluribus unum, out of many one. And we're no longer out of many one. We're pretty much on our own. We're out for ourselves, and that's reflected in our government, in our Democrat Party, in our government too. As we fight for the things that we look at as our own rather than the benefit of all together. And it's a sad statement to make about our society. We've lost our direction. We've lost our focus. We have organizations throughout the country that are existing for the main purpose of creating havoc in our society. We've got Antifa that is, with regard to what happened this last week, Monday, at the University of California in Berkeley.
Oh yeah.
You had the Antifa people coming in. You had a fight start, bloodied people up badly. The arguments and fights over why would the university allow a Christian-based organization such as Turning Point to be there, and yet at the same time, in all that turmoil, all that fighting in the town of Berkeley and around the campus, inside the campus, at the facility where they were holding the meeting, the gathering, the place was packed with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes you wonder why. Those people are interested in that.
What's going on?
Yeah, they're interested in God. What we're doing now isn't working. So to quote a wonderful phrase, why not God?
Yeah. I love the title I made.
And that's exactly the point. The people have got to start looking at what is it that makes us of value to each other. What is it makes us value to our families and to our friends and our neighbors? We're in a situation where we spend all of our time contradicting each other in the most visible places. That doesn't mean that where I am right now, I have people on the left of me and the right of me, and they're kind and wonderful people. We don't fight over anything, and we're just getting to know each other. But the beauty of living together, and one of the, I gotta say this while I have the breath to do it. I get the God bless you and y'alls and welcome and thank you. And I mean, the amount of kindness that goes on amongst the people here in the South is amazing. And I wish we could see that. They don't have any predilection whatsoever about how things are on the coastal big cities and Chicago and those places. They're living their lives here every single day, and they're treating each other with kindness. The other day, my wife was in this little store. I'm sitting out in the truck waiting for her, and a guy came up to the counter, and something was going on. He had a handful of flowers, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He turned and looked at my wife and said, "Here, ma'am, God bless you."
Oh, that's
gave her
crazy.
this bouquet of flowers. And my wife comes out to me and looks at me and she says, "This man just handed me this bouquet of flowers and wished me a very good day."
Oh,
You know?
my.
And I'm thinking, it's amazing how the people, why can't we all be that way throughout the entire country?
Yeah.
We're too busy one-upsmanship.
Well, let me throw this at both you and John to converse about for a moment or two. You know, here I'll use Franklin Graham as an example with his great organization, Samaritan's Purse. And whenever there has been a very chaotic weather condition or whatever happens that people need help, Samaritan's Purse has been right there as a Christian organization to help defray the costs, get money, goods, services, etc. Can you both tell me how many times you've heard of perhaps the Muslim Brotherhood or perhaps Antifa or perhaps the pro-Hamas groups? BLM, any of these groups, how many times have they raised funds to help other people in need?
Yeah. I've never seen anything. Maybe they have.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I have never seen
have.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know all the details about whether they're doing that. Some of them are doing that or not. I do know that they pretty much take care of their own and they stick within their own culture and background. But you know, I can understand. I mean, and here's another thing. Again, you're talking about all these disasters and things that happen. Franklin Graham, the churches are the first ones that show up.
Amen.
The church organizations,
Amen.
the benevolent organizations are the very first ones that show up in the dangerous places, and they bring whatever they can with them.
Yep.
And then the rest of the equipment shows up, and the tractor trailers full of food and bedding and everything else. And yet we have a problem with accepting Christianity in our society today. I don't get that.
Yeah.
John, did you have anything right now?
No, the only thing I was thinking when he said that was, you think about people and we as individuals not relying on government welfare, but helping each other. I don't know of any church, at least in Burley or Rupert, a good solid Christian church that's going to turn away somebody that actually needs help.
There you go.
You
there
know?
you go.
So, that's where the help is supposed to be.
But, you mentioned the South.
Even the smallest, poorest churches are taking care of people.
Yep.
My little congregation of 20 people was feeding 50, 60 people every month.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's talk about this for a minute. And the only way I can really equate it is to look at a compass. Hold a compass in the flat of your hand and look at that needle, find true north. And right now, in my opinion, the society of the United States, our culture, etc., is like a compass needle that's just spinning out of control.
Yep.
There is no true north for our society and culture. And quite frankly, after 42 days of this nonsense, complete shutdown and hurting the American public, I wonder if we can ever regain any common sense.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to think about
common
that.
sense, it seems to be. Yeah, it seems to be a very small commodity today.
Yeah, it's not common anymore.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Let's go back to that Turning Point USA. These people, as far as I'm concerned, that are heading up and now managing for Charlie Kirk, and his wife, Erica, is trying to lead the entirety of the movement, and I think she's doing a wonderful job with wonderful people. they've got a lot of guts. I can't put it any other way. They've got a lot of guts. They're going into areas like Berkeley where they know they're going to be hated, and they're packing the house with people that want to hear more about the real turning point of America, families and the love of family, the love of God. Pastor, what are your thoughts about Turning Point USA? And I hope it gets bigger and better every day all across the United States.
Well, I'm enthused about the fact that they've had so many thousands of people calling and setting up and wanting to set up new chapters, et cetera. And I'm grateful for the strength, because that's what the church has to do. That's what we as a people have to do. We can't slink back and hide in the bushes and say, hey, that's not our problem. We're in the church. No, it is our problem. Our society is our problem. Jesus was talking to his disciples, and you can read this in Matthew chapter 24. He said to them, then they will hand you over to the persecutors, and you will be killed, and you will be hated because of me. And that's exactly the kinds of problems that Turning Point is facing. They're being attacked by people who hate Jesus. They hate the faith. They hate and to me, God is saying to him, hey, you be prepared for this. Be prepared for this battle, because you need to step forward and you need to be unafraid. You're going to get persecuted. You're going to get attacked. But that's what you're called to do, is to stand up for righteousness and truth.
Let me ask you one quick question here, Alex, and maybe you are familiar with the answer to this. But, Turning Point USA basically is geared towards the younger Gen Z audience of maybe 18 to 25, 27-year-olds. But, I was talking to Deanne the other night, and I said, for those of us that are old and gray on top and long in the tooth, maybe there should be segments or charters geared towards senior citizens to help get involved with the same kind of a project.
There'd be too many broken hips. I'm going to say something to their credit. Turning Point USA, to their credit, and I know they are aware that the camera is scrutinizing their movements right now, but they have not reacted to evil with evil.
That's right.
They have not reacted.
That's why I'm saying senior citizens, they should have a chapter for them to get involved.
Yeah.
Pastor, go ahead, please.
Well, and that's true. And, I have to admit this. Fortunately, when I finished up my active career, I had the opportunity to be around people who didn't use their age as an excuse. But I've seen it across the board, and I admit this. And I think some Christians, if they really take a good look at themselves, admit it as well. And that is, we get to a point where we say, I've done all those things. I've been this, I've been that. I've been on this committee. I've been in that board. I've worked in this organization. I've been in this outreach. And it's time to let somebody else do it. And you know what? It's not time for somebody else to do it. We still need the elderly people in there.
Yep,
we need the older people with a great experience to give strength. I'm grateful that Charlie Kirk was a guy that was willing to go and debate. He was willing to speak to and debate the young people, because this is the problem. They're not getting educated in the way that they need to be educated to understand what is common sense and what is true and what is honorable. They don't have that experience. Many of them don't understand. Many of them don't serve in the military anymore because of the voluntary military. And there's a lot of experiences that these kids don't get, because they don't get, number one, either at home, and they certainly don't get it at the schools, because the school doesn't enforce that how it was once. It has to be, still should be, as you would say, Zeb, in your vernacular. But the reality is that the older people need to get involved. They do need to get involved, and I think that there are those who are stepping up, and they're maybe in the sideboard positions, doing support functions and those kinds of things, and letting the younger people move out. But I think we should see more of that. We should see more involvement. Maybe there should be a geriatric Turning Point.
Well, sign me up.
The one thing that I've learned over the years, and I didn't always know this because I was younger, if you want to learn something, talk to somebody that's old and listen to what they're saying.
That's been there and done that.
That's been there and done that. Don't be stupid like I was. When I was 18, my father was the most stupid person on the planet. And then as I got older and started raising kids and seeing grandkids, turns out the old man was pretty smart.
You found out he wrote the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, he did.
Pastor,
in 1969, when I came back from Vietnam, service, and I got a job that summer before I went back to college, and I worked for Chester Palmer in Roseville, California, as a grease monkey. I just changed oil and those kinds of things, and that was my job because there was a lot of business there. But every time we had lunch or break, I would go into the break room, and that's where 4 or 5 of the local mechanics that were experts in the field of Mercedes and other high quality type vehicles. And we would sit down. These guys, they had grease in the creases of their hands that was never washed out because of the years that they'd been doing the work. They were dressed in a way that was covered with oils and everything else. And they were eating their sandwiches, and they would have conversations. And one of the things I learned very quickly is that as you start listening to those people who work and sweat every single day of their lives, who are the senior citizens, and yet they're still working hard to make ends meet and provide for themselves, there's a whole lot to be learned.
Yep.
And most of them love their country and love their families, and they're working their tails off for the benefit of family and friends and country.
I believe the Bible's got several verses that talks about the wisdom of old people.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
Absolutely.
Pastor, at this time, and oh boy, we need it more every week. At this time, I would appreciate your great thoughts and insight on a prayer for our great nation, if you would, please.
Let me just say this before I do, Zeb. I want to wish you and Deanne a very happy anniversary.
Thank you.
What?
I know that it's you and Deanne's anniversary, and God bless you guys. I love you with all my heart. You're dear friends of ours, and Barbara made sure that she put a note in front of my face. Do not forget to tell them happy anniversary.
You know,
And
I appreciate
so I'm
that.
doing
Thank you. 54 years today. God bless you and Barb for your thoughts.
Yeah.
And John didn't know that. I didn't say
No.
anything to him about it, but it is our anniversary today, and I've been blessed far more than I deserve from the good Lord to have a wonderful wife like Deanne.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Proverbs 21:7. The violence of the wicked will sweep them away because they refuse to do what is just. Heavenly Father, only you can solve the problems of the misguided heart. We pray, gracious Lord, that you will forgive us from our weaknesses, from our sins and our failures, and that you will show us your mercy as you have cleansed us and freed us. And we ask, Lord, that you reverse the course that we see among our people today, wherever they may be in whatever endeavor they are involved in. Help us, Lord, to work in your name, to follow your will, to bring the truth of faith and honor and glory and righteousness and all of the things that you have for us. And we may be pleasing in your sight, that we may be people that are on a path of goodness and unity and purpose for all of us. And may God bless America and the people in this country, that we would stand up and be pleasing in your sight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuning in, listening to this segment every week, it's Why Not God with my dear friend, Pastor Alex Lissau, now back in Tennessee. Pastor Alex, God bless. We'll look forward to next week. Along with you, we're going to have Frosty Woldridge and maybe even a surprise guest on next week's podcast. God bless you, my dear friend. Take care. Thank you so much.
God bless, and happy anniversary again, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Say hello to Barb. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have our segment, Why Not God? And, of course, with Pastor Alex Lissau back in Tennessee. John, we're almost at the end of the program. Did you know that?
Yeah, it goes fast, I'll tell you.
I'm going to let you elaborate on how they can listen, get the blog, everything else one more time.
Yeah, real simple. Zebbell.com, ZEBBELL.com. That's all you got to do. Go there, look to the left. You're going to see where you can sign up for cow pies and coffee cups. Look right dead center screen, and you'll see our mugs right now, live and
Which leads me to say, if you saw the mug at the beginning of the program, that's not indicative of what he looks like all the time.
Yeah, live and loony. Yep, so just go right there, tune in. I'll get the things updated for tonight, get the old broadcast archived, and get the new one ready for next week.
We're looking forward to every week. You really thrive on this, don't you?
I love the technology part of this, man.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
love
You're
it.
doing a great job. I wished everybody could see the transition in my studio of the equipment, and this man is a wizard and very articulate, and I'm just blessed to have him on the show. John Ellis, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We always say at the end of the podcast, as I used to say at the end of every radio broadcast, the way things were are the way things ought to be. I pray that you and your family will have a good week. You'll tune in again next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, Zeb at the Ranch, and we will look forward to seeing you.